Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that didn't realize it was reviewing 2 horror movies this week. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Saturday mornings or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks. Oh, no, Andrew, no. I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he would never take an extra custard cream without asking. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
Each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. Yeah. Mr. Ormsby, how are you?
Oh, you know me. I am sharing the camera right now with the #1 cave diver in the world.
#1 in the world. Nobody better. Nobody better. I appreciate that. Have you ever been cave diving?
Not underwater, but spelunking, yeah.
Okay, so spelunking is just like cave exploring, right?
Yeah, like, pretty much.
It's funny because spelunking sounds like it should be cave diving. Like it sounds like you're like, plunking in the water or something. Like it's like a combination of splash and plunk.
Spelunk.
Spelunk. Yeah, you're going into the water. Like spelunking should be underwater. But no, spelunking is just caving. Have you ever been caving in a in a non-touristy, cave? Like actually just a cave that you've gone into to look around in?
They weren't like terribly deep. Like you could get around a corner and not see light, but nothing like Fantastic Caverns or something like that. That's like miles and miles of underground caverns.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in several caves, and they're always tourist attractions because most of the big ones are. But then my grandparents lived on a property with a big like creek area behind it, a big wooded creek area, and there were some caves in there, but they were only just kind of like where you could kind of duck in and just get a little bit of cover. It wasn't like they went into the mount, any kind of hill or mountain. In a deep way. My other grandparents' house had a bunker, built into a hill behind it that was like
a fallout bunker.
Yeah, like a fallout shelter type bunker.
Oh, that is so wicked.
I never went in there because it was like apparently dangerous. It hadn't been kept up or whatever, and so there was always. But I was always like, I wonder what's down there. But I was never brave enough to break the rules and explore. So
we missed out on Bad Boy Dicer. I can't even say that without laughing. No, me. I know old predications would make it sound like that's emasculating to say like they're seeing you as not Bad Boy Dicer, but
no, it's just real. It's just reality.
Yeah.
I'm a loner, Dottie, a rebel. All right, let's get into this. We've got a couple movies, Fall and 13 Lives, and if you have a variety of different phobias, these are very scary movies. These are horror movies. One involving heights, the other involving closed spaces,
claustrophobia,
underwater, drowning, like all sorts of stuff. So then we'll do a best ever challenge for best ever Ron Howard movies, movies that he directed.
fine director.
Great director. And then we'll do some buried treasure as we finish up. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk a little bit about Fall. For best friends Becky and Hunter, life is all about conquering fears and pushing limits. But after they climb 2,000 feet to the top of a remote abandoned radio tower, they find themselves stranded with no way down. Now Becky and Hunter's expert climbing skills will be put to the ultimate test as they desperately fight to survive the elements, a lack of supplies, and vertigo-inducing heights. Well, let's start with you, Andrew. What did you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I didn't like it.
Just like a straight didn't like it.
Straight didn't like it.
Okay.
Not adamant or kind of. Nope, just straight down the middle. Didn't like it.
I hated this movie. Hated it with a hot burning, fiery passion of hating. I hated every second of this movie. This movie can never show again. I don't care. It can disappear from the existence of.
You're coming at this with like Avatar hatred right now, Aaron.
I am well aware that a big reason I hate this movie is because it did what it was trying to do. I'm aware of that. I have an ironic for a tall guy fear of heights. And it is like I checked my pulse afterwards and it was like I had run a mile. Like it was insane what this movie was doing to me. Now, that's not the only reason I didn't like this movie. I don't think this is a great movie either, but it is hard for me to see past just how much I despised the experience of watching this movie based on my own predilections. So yeah, this movie absolutely freaked me out. I never am the person that's like, I have to cover my eyes. And there was so much of this movie where it's like, I can't watch. I have to look away. Like I cannot. Well, like I'm look right now. The trailer is playing, and I am focused in on the tiny picture of you, Andrew, because I don't want to see any of this anymore. It was a horrible experience. I hated it for all the reasons the movie probably was intentionally
fascinating.
trying to do.
Is there any part of you that's capable of separating that element to give a critical opinion on this movie?
There is a part of me that's able to intellectually talk about other parts of the movie and how I would generally think those kind of executions would impact a movie overall. What's difficult in a situation like this is applying it directly to this movie, because there are subtle nuances. We all know this, right? Movies have tricks that they play on us. For instance, let's just name a few of them. Foreshadowing, exposition, whatever it might be. Yeah. Narration, whatever it might be, where a movie can do these things and you can go, okay, that's a cheat. That's not, like I know my intellectual brain goes, okay, when a movie has narration, it should be, show, don't tell. That's a negative thing. However, there are still movies that use narration that do it well, that understand the nuance of how to, do it. So when you separate your actual nuanced experience from your intellectual assessment of something, it becomes more difficult to directly assess something. So that's bias, right? And my bias of absolutely despising this experience because of my fear of heights is going to play a role in what's going on here. So that's an admission. I hope it doesn't negate any other thoughts I might have about the movie, but it's definitely something I need to get out of the way right up front.
Well, at least you're admitting that you realize there is a bias inherent here.
Yeah. That's been one of my points as any kind of movie commentator since the very beginning. One of the things I hate is this idea of an unbiased observer, as if that's possible. In fact, so many cultural critics, movie critics, whatever, try to take this idea of I'm going to separate myself from my biases so that I can, talk about this thing. And I say embrace your biases, because there are other people who have your same biases and they're going to benefit from understanding how they might experience something. So yeah.
if you try to remove bias from films and art in general, then art stops becoming art. It becomes math.
Right.
Because there's a calculation to it.
Right. Absolutely. So, then it's algorithm, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which is kind of how movies feel nowadays. You know?
It can definitely feel that way.
Okay, but let's get into the nitty-gritty of this.
Yeah, movie. You liked it more than me. You loved this movie, so
that's true. Number one of the year. Sorry, Everything Everywhere All at Once. You have been demoted by fall. Actually, a pro of mine is your biggest part here is that this movie accomplishes what it wants to do.
Yeah, it really does.
It is vertigo-inducing, and
it's terrifying.
I don't like heights. I'm not to your level of phobia or just, you know, over like life-defining fear of something, you know.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it. But this movie is shot perfectly to induce that feeling. So I can see how people can get an adrenaline rush from that, like how people did in Free Solo. Some of the exact same like tension and like you know, the the depth perception, you know, that Free Solo did, that anxiety inducing feeling that I got from that, I got in this too. So that's a big pro for me.
Yeah, it's clearly not for me, but I mean, I can see, I guess what I can say, and I kind of already did, is mission accomplished. And yes, so if that is a pro, then that's a pro. Mission accomplished. If this was your mission to create something fear-inducing in this way, then great job, because it's definitely shot in a way that just made me want to walk out and never come back. Like, and I can't imagine. I cannot imagine this movie in high frame rate 3D. Like the idea that you would actually feel the actual depth of 2,000 feet. Man. What an experience.
There's a VR game out there where you walk out on a plank.
Like
a 30 over the Eiffel Tower, or it's an Empire State Building, and you just look down on Manhattan.
Can I tell you I'm going to tell you a recent story. This story does not make me look good, and that's fine. But it'll give you an idea of how debilitating. Yeah, this let's just say where I sit, because this is the story. So we are a friend of mine, a friend of the show, guest on the show, Ian, and I are out in California. We're going to the Hollywood sign, right? We're just kind of walking a path up towards the Hollywood sign. And there's a little outcropping you can kind of go to where there's some hills, and there's basically a great panorama, like 360, because you kind of get up above stuff, and then there's, you know, these huge valleys on both sides.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, do you want to walk up there, kind of check that out? He's like, sure. And so we kind of both walk up that way. Now, I will tell you, the peninsula-ish to kind of climb these hills is a good, I'm going to say 25 feet wide. Like, it's not, you know, just like a 4 foot. It's not a plank, right? This is not narrow. So I climb up one of these hills on this, you know, let's say 25-foot wide peninsula or whatever, and I start panic. Like, I'm just like, I'm going to die. I'm going to trip. I'm going to fall down this hill, and then I'm going to, you know, pummel over the side. It's like my mind is playing all these, you know, fear of height tricks on me. And I cannot walk back down this hill. I literally, on a 25-foot wide peninsula, sit on my butt and scooch down the hill so that I know that I'm not going to fall. And it's just the weirdest, debilitating thing when you're like, this thing owns me in that way. And so it's just like, it's my thing. Heights is my thing. Like, it's, you know, it's just something I don't dig.
You know what? I just realized, and it kind of drove me insane that I didn't think of it until now. One of our gurus works on those towers. Like, he climbs those towers to switch out the bulbs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Matt Roper.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he does. He used to do.
Yeah. He's insane. He is, he does not have full mental capacities. I don't understand.
Yeah.
And that is another part of this. Honestly, we'll just go here. I don't have I mean, I guess I could find a couple other good things to say about him. Maybe I'll say them eventually.
Performances.
But
What do you think of the performances?
they're fine. There's nothing spectacular here. They're believable. The only unbelievable performance is no fault of the performer, and that's trying to watch Negan be a kind father.
No, okay. You know what? I have a term for this. And so whenever I see this in a movie, I say, "Oh, it's good to see Jeffrey Dean Morgan picking up his lunch money." You know, that's what it is to me.
Yeah. They're fine. Whatever. I'm not. There's nothing to crow about. They're also not terrible. So like, I'm not going to destroy them.
Yeah.
Either.
Serviceable.
Yes. But again, and this is what I was starting to say, I have a hard time even seeing the performances because I think everybody in this movie is stupid. They're dumb. I don't like, this is a dumb thing. Okay, listen, if you are an adrenaline junkie, if you love adrenaline and you love the idea of, you know, something that might, you know, hurt you or harm you or whatever, to each their own, fine, go live life and do stuff. But like, I don't understand the intellectual conversation you have to go, I'm going to risk my life because it makes me feel good. Like, I like that. I just keep my feet on the ground. I don't understand it. And so because of that, my biases and my judgmentalism of that, you know, impacts the way I see these characters. I don't care about them. I think they're idiots. If they die, it's their own fault. It's not like, I have no investment in somebody who's like, I'm going to climb 2,000 feet on a shut down tower. What am I supposed to care about this character? Like, I don't care about you. Like, you know, I mean, care about you as a human being on the very base level of you're a human and I care about you. But as far as a movie goes, like, there you go. You got what you deserve.
It's funny because last week, I'm not calling this a tangent, but, you know, you went on a philosophical rant about pacifism last week, you know, and here you're like,
I don't want anybody to die.
Who cares if they, like, you have, like, it's, I know that's not what you're saying right now. You're saying like, it would, if this was real, it would be really sad if this happened. But
it's sad, but what did you expect? You know, how am I supposed to invest in like the care for you as a movie character? Please, let's take this out of the human side. There is part of this that can creep into actuality, and I don't like it. I am never the kind of person that wants to be like, well, you deserved it. Like, that is not who I want to be on a real life level. However, I still can be the kind of person that goes, consequences. Natural consequences. You know, it's not that I don't care about you. It's not that I don't find it sad. It's not that I don't find it terrible. But you know, if you live your life, this is another documentary. If you live your life going, I'm going to go be buddies with a bunch of bears, and you get eaten by a bear, what am I supposed to do? That's terrible. That's horrible for you.
You call Werner Herzog, that's what you do.
That was a choice you made. And I I don't know if I'm supposed to separate myself from that and go, separate myself from the natural consequences somehow.
I think the nicest way to say it is there are different levels of empathy. You know, like I can empathize with this was a person, but can I empathize with the situation? You know?
Yeah.
It feels like I'm going to be the one doing the bullet point, opinions on this movie because you are so wrapped up in this own personal venture that you found yourself.
I just don't understand it. And
so
that,
not even,
that
like, you
that
haven't
makes
talked
it
about the
difficult.
story or anything. Like, you were so separated from this movie right now. It's fascinating.
It affects everything. So let's talk about story. Let's talk about themes. Let's talk about message. Who cares? Like, you can try to tell me there's some deep message here about the idea of loss and conquering, trauma and loss and those kind of things. This is not how you do that in a healthy way. This is unhealthy.
It is the worst.
This is the worst possible way to do that. So why are you trying to give me this theme and message? Like, it's...
I wrote down in my notes as I was watching this movie in the theater, I literally wrote down, she is the worst friend in the history of
Correct.
time. She is the worst friend ever. Every single choice she makes, and as they're climbing, especially, like, she hit an 11 when she was climbing the tower with her, and she's like, come on, and then she starts shaking the railing. I'm like, you are literally the worst friend in the history of movies.
This is such an unhealthy way to deal with trauma, that becoming lost in alcohol and drugs is healthier than this choice. It is safer than this choice. And that's a terrible choice. Yeah. But so exactly. So the story and the themes, again, are impacted by just how ridiculous I find this whole decision and this whole thing.
And another con for me for this movie is I came up with several viable solutions to their situation.
Yes.
That obviously there are risks, but I think that the risk to reward is so heavily in the positive's favor that I think that they are insanely viable. And I picked them up within like the first
so quickly. Yeah. So quickly there are ways to do this.
Yes.
And
I'm not even talking about like, don't find yourself in this situation. I'm talking like,
no, I know.
I climbed all the way up there.
Now I'm stuck. Here's what I have. Here's what I can do. There is one that is not only so simple and so easy, but they also talk their way around it and do other things involving it the entire movie.
Can we just say it now, or would it?
That's
or do you
fine.
Even care?
I have to be careful. I don't want to spoil the movie for people who do want to care. So I do want to kind of consider the idea that it might be spoiled.
They didn't come up with.
Yeah, I guess that's not a spoiler. Just let you know that they didn't do this. In fact, the movie would probably be better if you know the things that they don't do, because then you're not expecting them to do the obvious things. So yes, I'm curious if we're thinking along the same lines.
Let you go ahead. What's yours?
Fly the phone down on the drone.
That's it. Fly the phone down on the drone.
That's it. Yeah. It's done. It's over. You're trying to solve this problem of being able to get the phone into reception.
Yes.
And you attach a note to the drone and try to... I'm sorry. Now I'm spoiling actual things. Hold on. Take that back. I didn't finish the thought. But just put the phone on the drone and fly it down to the ground. How hard is this?
And then when you fly it back up, you will get confirmation whether it worked or not.
Yes.
Because it will have said posted.
Oh my goodness. And that is such an easy, simple solution. And the fact that they don't even ever address it, or it's wild to me. The other thing I wondered is, don't these towers have alarm systems for when a light is off or goes out? That's
what Roper did whenever those lights go out. That's what he did. He went up there to change the bulbs.
So for the longest time, I thought that's how this was ending. And instead they do this stupid stupid life hack thing, which, Chekhov's life hack.
Okay, real quick. Is this a real thing, or is this film
I haven't looked.
But what I'm saying is, this sounds like such a insanely dangerous way to hurt yourself, potentially kill yourself by electrocution. Like, is this a tested, safe thing, or is this movie gonna actually get in big trouble?
I haven't done any research, so I'm not gonna even guess one way or another. But it certainly doesn't seem like the most viable option. So so you're absolutely right. Yeah. It's so annoying.
Stuffed crust pizzaing it down to the.
This movie was clearly written in a way to, in my mind, minimize the authenticity and maximize the showiness. So the idea of taking things over the top, the choices that are made are sometimes the most extreme, weirdest, choices, because that's what they think a a movie like this should be, when what you don't realize is, for most people, there's a different version of this movie, right?
A good one.
What? Yes. 128 hours version of this movie. Now, I know that was based on a true story or whatever. Talk about scary, 1 hour longer movies.
Than what you said.
What's that?
It's 127 hours. You said 128, and I'm like,
listen, it's got to be an even number. Round it up.
Marston, he suffered enough. Don't put him through another hour of that.
The extra hour. Yeah. Put it on the tally. So there is a version of this movie where you lean into keeping it as authentic as possible, because you know that ups the audience investment. Now, I don't know if that impacts me in a different way, if all of a sudden the tension becomes something I'm more apt to give the movie credit for, because I'm also involved in the characters, in the story. I don't mind being tense or scared. It's okay, especially if it leads to something incredible. But to have it be just a trick the movie is doing amongst a whole bunch of nonsense, becomes really infuriating. It's like you can go through some pain to get to something, great. But if you go through some pain and at the other end is just nothing, why are you doing that? And so that was piling up on me.
Frustration. I went through all of this, and for what?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a lot of nonsense choices. And choices to make the movie feel more extreme or more wild, including a story turn.
Okay, let's talk about this revelation.
Yeah.
Hated it.
I hated it too.
Pointless.
It is pointless. What are we doing? The movie's better if you just tell us that.
Yeah.
It's leaning away from authenticity and leaning towards, the bombastic, the extreme. So
if it doesn't serve anything.
I don't think so, other than gotcha. It's so, I think that's something that many times movies will do, is they will try to service a story turn instead of the story.
Yeah. Oh, so our situation still sucks. That's all that happens.
Yeah. I mean, the reveal is done in an okay way. It's not that the reveal isn't done well. It's just that it doesn't mean anything, and it actually does a disservice to our investment in the story and in the knowledge of what's going on.
Yes.
So, and the movie does that in other ways too, with dream scene. How many dream scenes were in this movie where I think the movie wanted us to think it was actually happening, and then it was a
but
dream,
never fooled us for a second.
Kind of thing. So, yeah.
So, yeah. You looking forward to seeing this again, huh?
Nope. No, I will never see this again. I will just now pretend this movie doesn't exist.
Okay, here's the thing. I'm going to forget about this movie, not because of my, disdain for it. It's just such a nonsensical film. It says nothing. It does nothing.
It doesn't treat anything seriously. It doesn't treat anything about its characters or situation in a serious way.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So there's a moment where something happens in the movie where what the feeling the movie wants to give you is almost saved but not going to be saved. This is midway.
Oh, yeah.
And it is the dumbest, most basic, most, in my opinion, nihilistic. What's that?
Some people suck.
Yeah, and it's just what is the point, other than the movie wanted the moment of wah wah.
Oh, okay. So Polly Walnuts in the chat. There's a chat on YouTube, everybody. You can check it out.
Yes, there is.
Yes, if you watch live.
And chat.
He asked, are there any cliffhanger parallels? Oh, my sweet summer child. There's an entire chapter of cliffhanger in this movie, which I think has to be done in every single one of these vertigo-inducing, Vertical Limit, cliffhanger, this. Like, there has to be that one scene in every single one of these movies. And yes, it's in this movie.
Yeah, there are certainly some cliffhanger similarities. Overall, though, cliffhanger knows the kind of movie it is. I don't think this movie does. And cliffhanger is more about the story of the characters and what they are doing than it is about the just survival fear aspect of what's going on. It has its moments of, climbing and vertigo and those kind of things. But
cliffhanger, the vertigo and like the heights of stuff, that's not the story. That's the
set pieces.
Yeah, the set piece.
Yeah.
It actually says something unlike this one.
All right, my one final thing, it's just going to be one more example of this movie, choosing showiness over authenticity, and it's just a simple one. But one of the characters has to go to the bathroom, and so they do it in a way that insinuates that she drops trow and then leans over the side of this thing to relieve herself.
Yeah. Instead of just there's grating.
Instead of just peeing. It's sterile, it'll dry, this movie at every moment is trying to make,
Get a rash, Aaron.
Yeah, I don't think that's the lane. But even then, you don't have to lean over the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh God, I forgot what I was going to say now. It had something to do with, where is this tower? Like Arizona? Is that like where they were? Do you know how hot the metal of that tower is that you are even thinking that you're going to be able to climb it? Like, the minute you put your hand on it, you would get scalded sitting out there in the blazing sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, listen, if you want to go nitpick on this movie, there's plenty to nitpick. We've talked about some of it.
I didn't mean to start us down a rabbit hole. It's just I had to throw that out there.
It's a lot of nonsense. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
No post-credit scene.
All right, we will move on to the next film then. Let's chat a little bit about 13 Lives. 12 boys and the coach of a Thai soccer team explore the Tom Luang Cave when an unexpected rainstorm traps them in a chamber inside the mountain. Entombed behind a maze of flooded cave tunnels, they face impossible odds. A team of world-class divers navigate through miles of dangerous cave networks to discover that finding the boys is only the beginning. Ron Howard directing this. It is on Amazon Prime. We've got a little bit of audio there for a second. On Amazon Prime, you can check this out. A few people that you might know starring in this cast from other things. Viggo Mortensen, Colin Farrell, Joel Edgerton, and some others you might recognize. What did you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
I loved it.
I loved
it.
I loved this movie as well. It is the exact opposite of Fall in every single way, despite the fact that they are doing similar things.
Yeah.
And I understand one is a true story and one is fiction, but that doesn't mean you can't make your fiction feel real. And I think it's a valid thing to compare these two movies.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved this movie. Talk a little bit about it, Andrew. What are some of the things you loved?
Harrowing.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the first word that comes to my mind. The biggest pro I have for this movie, besides its ability to induce the phobias and stuff like that. But I like the fact that even though this film mainly follows our lead actors, it never feels like it's about them.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I love that point. I was thinking the same thing.
You have very charismatic and amazing actors like Viggo Mortensen and Joel Edgerton and Colin Farrell, but you never forget for a single second that this is not a movie about them.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I think both Viggo and Colin are amazing in this movie.
Stellar.
I love them so much as these characters. They are, to me, fully a different person. I literally, just even talking now about Colin Farrell, I'm like, oh yeah, that was Colin Farrell, because it wasn't Colin Farrell. it was this diver, and
It's
it's
been
just
so transformative this year with this and Penguin.
yes, it was weird for him to do the penguin makeup in this, but I guess it makes
Yeah.
sense with swimming under the water and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was so don't get me wrong, I was really impressed with their performances, but it is not about them. In the movie doesn't there's a real tendency in these movies to make it about a certain character or couple of characters. And in worse hands, this movie starts with some really deep and meaningful scene about the Viggo Mortensen character, something from his past where he lost someone in a tunnel, and then the movie becomes about him conquering those fears to save these boys or whatever. And this movie goes, no, that's not what we're about here. What we're about here is the truth of this situation, the authenticity of this situation, and we're not even going to bring these big name actors and their amazing performances into this film until these people actually entered into the story. It's very linear in that way, and I think it serves the movie well.
Yeah. So I don't personally have any like phobias of like drowning or like claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Now that's not saying that's how I'd like to go. That's just saying like
Andrew has made it clear he would love to drown.
Yes, I would love to drown. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. That's morbid. Anyway, but this movie made me feel a level of those. So like, even though like I'm not like terrified like I am with sharks or something like that, but this movie, it got me a little claustrophobic, and it got me like the fear of drowning. And I gotta say, I watched this on my phone, not on like a big screen, and the fact that it still made me, I did. I was at work anyway. But even like I have to say, even watching it on a phone, it made me feel those things. So I can only imagine that would be elevated if I were to watch it on like a real screen.
I bet it would be. I watched it on a very nice large screen with huge sound, and it was quite immersive. Immersive and submersive. It was enough that my wife couldn't watch. She watched a little bit, and she does have kind of claustrophobia stuff. And she was like, I don't need this. And she walked away. But in a different way, if I were claustrophobic instead of acrophobic, this would have been the example of the movie where it's like, it's worth it. It's like, you're making me feel these things. It's a displeasure, but at the end of the day, the story you're telling and the way you're telling it and the authenticity of it makes me feel something, valuable in the end, that makes that pain worth, what I went through. It really is the opposite. These movies are like polar opposites, kind of doing similar things. So yeah, it was absolutely, I think, worth the fear and the tension and all those kind of things. And it's so well done. And that's not easy, by the way. It is not easy to film underwater scenes. It is not easy to capture the closed off space of dark underwater. Like that is a difficult thing to light. It's a difficult thing to shoot. It's a difficult thing to, figure out the storyboarding and the editing. And it's just so expertly done here. Really a technically remarkable movie.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my pros, is the fact that so much of this movie is taking place in dark areas, but the ability for things to still be visible, and understandable.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how rare that is in movies?
Yeah.
Yeah. That, like, a lot of movies use darkness to hide stuff. But no, this somehow making the darkness visible and like intelligible, I guess, is a better way to say it. But yeah, really like that. How familiar were you with like this incident in Thailand?
A little bit.
Did you follow? I remember
it? I did follow it a little bit. Not enough that I knew exactly what happened. In fact, my wife and I were having a conversation. She was sure, and I understand how this happens, and this is how most of us end up believing things that aren't true, and we can't believe that we thought it, but she had remembered that Elon Musk had created this like
He did.
pill thing, and that's how, you know, they ended up getting out. And
Yeah, he called somebody. I don't want to use the same word that he used, but it starts with a P. He called him P guy, and took him to court and everything. There was a huge deal with Elon Musk in this whole thing, which I'm glad. One,
but
one
they
of my
didn't
jokes
use
was,
his stuff in the end to get them out, did
yeah,
they?
no, they didn't.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So what I was saying was, in my wife's mind, that's what had happened, was that
She
Elon
thought
Musk
that
had
Elon
saved the
Musk
day.
did do it.
Because what happens is when you see news from a distance, your mind fills in blanks, right? And so it's kind of one of those interesting things, and it's one of the reasons I love movies like this. Is it, you know, and again, movies can play fast and loose with the truth. Don't get me wrong. Even movies based on a true story can do that.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Thank you. And I think that's an interesting, nuanced discussion to have about how to create movies based on true stories. However, one of my favorite things about this movie, and I haven't done all the research as far as, you know, if they did change the story at all in any kind of ways, but what I like about this movie is that it's almost like a documentary style telling of a true story.
Reenactment.
It's almost like more of a reenactment than you know, a dramatization. Because and what I love that the movie does, and it does it subtly and it does it well, and it only does it, I think, when it's pertinent to the movement of the movie in our understanding. It uses graphics. I thought the graphics were clear, understandable, and perfectly placed, you know, to tell us how, you know, far this place was. Because without those graphics and distances and those kind of things, you don't get the full scope of what they're doing here. When you realize, you know, when it pops up on screen 7.5 hours late, you know, into this, and you realize, oh my goodness, they've been diving through caves for 7+ hours to get there.
I want to build off of that, because something else this movie does that's amazing. It's subtle, but if you pick up on it, you just hold on to it and love it. It's the fact that whenever they have the map pop up, you can see that it kind of fades off to the left of the screen. So in your mind, you know, there's more to the mapping of this cave that they're not showing us yet. Like this is going to get huge, and it slowly does as the movie progresses. This map slowly expands to the left until you get to like the full scale of everything, and you realize how big it is, and you're like, wow.
I mean, they were a mile and a half in, 2,500 meters, which I think is 1.5 miles. Or a little over 1.5 miles, and most of it was underwater when they were trying to rescue them. Like, you know,
that cave was flooded for 8 months,
completely flooded.
Yeah.
After that,
another thing this movie did great was it made me appreciate the difficulty of the situation. Because I didn't understand or appreciate the difficulty of the situation when I was watching it on the news. How they, you know, broke everything down and like made it understandable made me realize like this was an impossible situation, and I can now appreciate and, you know, have, great admiration for the people that pulled this off.
Yeah. And also how ridiculous it is that and again, we're talking about a real life event here, so I apologize if any of this seems spoilery for the movie, but I assume most people when it comes to real life stuff you know, have at least some familiarity with it. But the miracle of the fact, and I guess if you don't know what happened in this and you don't want to know, maybe you can jump forward a little bit, but I am going to be specific about a couple things. But the miracle that every single one of those kids came out alive is, this movie makes it so clear what a miracle that was. You know, what a crazy. And miracle can be, it's a word that's thrown around a lot. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Let me be clear what I mean. I don't mean to diminish the hard work, intelligence, intellect. I'm not talking about chance. I'm not talking about those kind of things. I'm talking about the idea that just there was this needle to thread, and the experts in threading needles somehow threaded that needle from a mile and a half out. You know, like it's wild.
When you realize how many moving parts need to work in tandem to pull this off, that's how you can appreciate, like everything had to work at this exact time to let something else work.
And the plan was so ridiculous that, the doctor is rightfully saying, no, we cannot do this. And just to understand, the craziest part about the decision making in this is to understand, look, we either probably bring out non-alive children, or we definitely bring out non-alive children. And to understand that in a way that goes, I guess we shoot for the probably, it's like just the mental ability and strength to do that and go, okay, let's go for it, even though it probably won't work. And we'll probably,
Because you got to think how they are. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just that's the whole Viggo Mortensen character, right? That's the whole Richard Stanton thing, is just like, great, we found them, but everybody thinks that means they're saved, and they're still probably going to die. Like,
Yeah. The way I looked at it is, Paul again in the chat said, does this feel like Only the Brave, where they build up the character? No, because
it's very different than Only the Brave. And I love Only the Brave. It's one of my favorite movies.
Because I think Only the Brave does focus more on the characters, while this movie focuses more on the situation.
Yep.
But there are moments in this movie, like Aaron's talking about, where there are situations where you have the characters mulling over this choice of, do I live? Like it kind of boils down to this: do I live with the feeling of regret? Like, I could have done something, but I chose to just say, hey, these kids are going to die and there's nothing. Or do I live with the guilt of feeling like I killed these kids with this wild idea?
Right.
Like it feels like those are your only two options, but really there's a sliver of a third option where everything works out.
Yeah.
But you don't think of that one.
Nope. Absolutely amazing stuff. I think I've said pretty much everything I want to say. It's just a really well-made movie. The way this does feel like Only the Brave to me is I can see a world where this movie just flies completely under the radar, and 3 years from now, people are all of a sudden going, man, that 13 Lives movie is really good. Because that's how I feel about Only the Brave. Since, what's his name, the director, did Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
And now people are going back and watching more of his stuff, and they're going, man, this Only the Brave is actually a good movie. I was shouting to you about Only the Brave 5 years ago. Yeah. Nobody listened.
You know what? Only the Brave, it was a slow burn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, maybe 13 Lives will have more than a trickle-down effect.
We'll be here all night, people.
All right, let's continue on. Did you have anything else? One more thing?
No post-credit scene. No sequels in the work. Monsoon
no
2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, not happening. Not happening. Before we move on, a huge thank you to our SIF Pop members. We appreciate you quite a bit. A big old shout out to Sepe Coupons, who came on board this past week.
Woo!
Appreciate you and the others who have been faithfully supporting what goes on here. So if you're interested in that, here's basically how it works. It is a simple fan funding where you enjoy what we do. And so you say, you know what, I can throw $5 a month your way. And what that allows us to do is keep doing this podcast, keep doing the website. There's some great articles and reviews that happen at sifpop.com. So because of you, we can keep going. And we give you some thank you things. One of the main things that we do is an ad-free podcast feed just for you. So it's this podcast, but without the advertising. And then every week there's also a bonus podcast. This week we talked about the scariest we've ever been most scared we've ever been watching a movie. So if you want to hear that conversation, as well as the many others that we've had before that, all of those will be accessible to you in your own podcast feed, not just the ones from when you sign up, but even the ones in the past. So if you're interested in checking that out, go to patreon.com/siftpop. patreon.com/sifpop, and know from the bottom of our hearts how much we appreciate it. And how much we love our SIFPOP members. We love doing the extra content for you guys. So go check that out again, patreon.com/SIFPOP. All right, let's move into the best ever challenge. We're going to do best ever Ron Howard films. We will go number 5 to number 1. If you have it higher, feel free to trumpet. So, alrighty. Andrew, why don't you kick us off? What's your number 5?
Ron Howard, done a few movies.
He's done a few. Him. Yeah, honestly, there are only a handful of directors where you can do a best ever challenge, where they have enough, movies out there to be able to really kind of put together the list. So
and not what's the name of that director in Hollywood that people associate, like if they know they did
Alan
a bad
Smithy?
movie? Alan Smithy, is it? Yeah,
we should do a best ever Alan Smithy films at some
that would
point.
be amazing. So my number 5, Willow.
Yeah, I had that in my honorable mentions.
I know that there are movies of his that he's done that are technically better. But when I'm looking at this movie or looking at making this list, I want to look at how this movie impacted me. And I watched Willow so much growing up. So much of like my childhood and like this is like me, my dad, and my sister, like this is our favorite movie. Like we quote it all the time. So there's definite emotional historical connection for me with this movie. Again, there are movies that Howard's done that I know are technically better, but got to put Willow on this list somewhere.
No, I totally get it. Like I said, it was in my honorable mentions, and it's definitely worth mentioning. As even just fantasy movies are interesting. They're a difficult one to really pull off, and we forget because some of the greatest movies ever made are fantasy movies, like Lord of the Rings or whatever. How difficult it can be, but Willow's good.
Yeah, Val Kilmer, love him. Warwick Davis.
My number 5 might get Trump. Cinderella Man, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that is my number 5. What's your number 4, Andrew?
This one might get trumped. Rush.
No, I have it at number 4 as well. We can talk about it right now.
Nice. Did not expect this movie to be as amazing as it is.
It's so good. It's so good.
Shockingly good.
This is another one of those movies I feel like I shouted about and then just kind of disappeared, and then people found it later and were like, hey, you know what? Rush is a pretty good movie.
Because I'm not really a car guy. Like,
right.
The reason I love this movie isn't because I am adamant about Formula One or, racing life or anything like that. It's because this movie does such a good job of building this rivalry between these two guys that it doesn't matter what they would have competed in. The fact that their disdain for each other, that's what, drives this movie.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
I love this. I think it remains one of Chris Hemsworth's best performances. I think Daniel Bruhl is the standout here. I mean, he's incredible. But Hemsworth is right there too and doing exactly what he needs to do. This movie is shot well. This is the thing about Ron Howard, right? Ron Howard, I think, gets a little bit slotted in kind of the medium part of, greatest directors of all time kind of list. Like, you've got the Spielbergs and the Scorseses and that kind of stuff. And then it's like, Ron Howard's good. Ron Howard is so technically proficient that it's almost difficult for him to make a bad movie. And that is, I'm not saying he hasn't, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But I am saying that he does so many movies that, in lesser hands would feel very basic. And yet he is so technically proficient, he elevates them. And I think that's really important. And Rush is one of those movies that I think he just elevates with his skill.
I didn't mention this whenever we were talking about 13 Lives, but I think that Ron Howard has a kind of watermark way of making movies. Like, you can tell when it's a Ron Howard movie, but I didn't feel that way whenever I was watching 13 Lives. It didn't feel like a Ron Howard movie to me. So that was another, I guess you could say, a pro or a negative, depending on how you look at it. But
he's kind of been doing documentaries for a little bit the past few years. And so I think that you're feeling some of that documentary muscle memory in 13 Lives that isn't in necessarily some of his other stuff. Although there is one that I will be talking about that does feel a little bit more documentary style.
Well, maybe I feel whenever I watch Ron Howard movies, it feels like there's a scale to them. Like they feel bigger somehow.
Sure.
Whereas I guess with a claustrophobic movie like 13 Hours, that's kind of
it's not exactly what you want.
Your number 3 now, is that right? Or no,
I think it's your number 3. Yeah.
Okay, it's gonna get trumped, but Apollo 13.
That will be trumped. Yeah. My number 3 is the other documentary style one that I wanted to talk about, which is Frost Nixon. Is in my number 3.
Yeah, that would have been. That's a movie I think is better than Willow, but yeah.
It's so good. Frost Nixon is so good, and you really do feel like you're there experiencing what happened. It's kind of it's just amazing that this actually happened, and the way that Ron Howard captures it and presents it is perfect storytelling. If you haven't seen Frost Nixon, high recommend.
Yeah. Did you after you watched Frost Nixon, did you go back to actually watch the real interviews? I did too. I thought that was something amazing because it makes because Ron Howard does such an amazing job of making this. Like, there's no way this happened. Like it's so crazy that he makes you want to go and actually watch it, and you're like, oh crap, this happened.
Oh yes, it did. Oh indeed, it did.
I always go back to the line, like if I were to make like a top 100 list of like greatest movie quotes, something from this is, I think whenever the president does something, that means it's not illegal.
Oh boy, if only that were still something that were in the news.
Yeah. This is I know it's a shocking and unfound and unheard of, concept.
Yeah, it's a must watch. It is an absolutely must watch.
Totally agree. Brilliant.
Frost Nixon is my number 3. I think number 2, Andrew, what's your number 2?
This is where I have Cinderella Man.
Okay, talk about it. Speak on it.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge boxing guy. And the story of Jim Braddock I think the movie does a great job of making it not only a boxing movie, but it makes a movie about the depression, and like how it affected people. And this normally with a boxing movie, you have a rise to stardom, like a pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, that kind of like Rocky, but this is a fall from grace, not by one's own doing, but just by the world at large taking it from you. And how he did it to be a star initially, but now he's doing it to provide food for his family. And it's such, whenever you see, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Well, because it's an emotional scene.
It is.
But that scene whenever Russell Crowe is, he goes back to the athletic commission and he's begging them for money. That scene gets me so hard because that's everything for a man, is to, see himself as a provider. Oh my God. That is
let it out, Andrew. Let it out.
Whoa.
No, it is worthy of your tears. It is a beautiful movie. I had it at number 5, and it's one I need to revisit. It's really great, but I haven't watched it in a while. And I need to check it out. So,
and Renee Zellweger was astonishing in that movie too. Transform. I think she won Best Actress, actually.
This would be the Russell Crowe section of the conversation if I didn't think it was going to get trumped. But I have A Beautiful Mind at number 2.
Yeah, you do. Sorry, we're gonna have to wait on that.
Well, let's talk about number 1.
The good news is we get to talk about Apollo 13 now.
Well, actually, we get to talk about A Beautiful Mind first because you're number 1 first. But
okay,
that's right.
Yeah, this was a 1-2 punch for Russell Crowe because the movie he did before Beautiful Mind was Gladiator. Can you imagine coming out of the gate to announce yourself to the world like, I am Russell Crowe, Gladiator, A Beautiful Mind? He won for Gladiator for Best Actor, but he didn't win for A Beautiful Mind. And I think that his performance in A Beautiful Mind is better.
Oh, I think so too. I think that's, I don't even know that that's a weird opinion. I think a lot of people would consider this his better performance.
I think my head was just going to. I think people would consider Gladiator a better movie than A Beautiful Mind,
Possibly,
which
yeah.
maybe I do, but a Beautiful Mind. This is another. I can't believe this is a true story sort of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I didn't know the story of John Nash before seeing this
I
movie. I
didn't
don't
either.
know about you. Didn't either.
Nope, did nothing.
So, yeah, so I didn't know even as I was watching the movie that I was watching a true story. When it was revealed at the very end, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think I knew when I was watching, but I didn't really know anything about it before watching. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's a movie that even though it's about a real thing, I don't want to spoil. So if you don't know anything about John Nash and you haven't seen A Beautiful Mind, don't look it up. Just watch this movie. It is astonishing. Everybody in this movie is great. He's great. Ed Harris is great. Jennifer Connelly's great. Yeah, just great. Great.
Everybody is great. You covered pretty much everything that I would cover. Another must watch. It's just expert filmmaking. So,
Aaron,
yeah.
Talk about Apollo 13.
I will talk about Apollo 13, and one of the things that I hear from people about Ron Howard is, yeah, Apollo 13 is great, but really, I mean, everything else is kind of just okay. And one of the things where doing a list like this, I think you cannot look at our list today and go, Ron Howard is not one of our great directors. He is one of our great directors. And
yes.
I don't know why it feels like so many people kind of downplay his skill, but man, what a list of amazing movies. The one that nobody disagrees about, I shouldn't say nobody, the one that most people don't disagree about is Apollo 13. This is just one of the most interesting, expertly done, expertly told true stories with incredible performances down the line. I absolutely love this movie. I think it's really, really amazing. And honestly, this is kind of what Ron Howard has done when he's at his best, right? Is take something true and just put it on the screen in a way that is compelling and interesting and tells the story to speak to us about. Honestly, this 13 Lives and Apollo 13 have a lot of similarities beyond the number 13. Like they are very similar explorations of humans being like, let's solve this problem. Let's figure out how to save these people by solving this impossible problem. And I really, really dig that.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Every single movie on your list is based on a true story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that is true.
If I would have switched to Frost Nixon with Willow, yeah, every single one would be based on true story.
Ron Howard tells great true stories, man. He knows how to tell them.
And something else for Apollo 13, like if you're going into this 13 Lives and both movies have 13 in them. Fun.
I literally just said that. Did you not hear me say that?
I really didn't. Sorry, because
I said
I was doing the math in my head of like, look at maybe they're all based on a true story.
I just said they have a lot of similarities beyond just having the number 13 in the title. Yeah.
Apologies, everybody. That lets you know how off in the clouds I was. But what I was saying is if you're going to go into 13 Lives and wondering if Ron Howard knows how to make you feel claustrophobic or, like tension or anything like that, look at Apollo 13. What
I'm
people
telling
would
you
consider is his best movie. The guy knows how to do tension. He does it really well.
They really are very similar. They really are. And the cave is just space is the cave in this movie. And because I guess maybe a slight difference is in Apollo 13 the astronauts are part of the problem solving, but not really. It's mostly happening on the ground. They're just executing it. So yeah, it's really interesting to kind of see those similarities.
Yeah.
There you go. Any honorable mentions, Andrew, that you want to mention honorably?
It's weird. I love this movie, and I don't hear anybody talk about it, and I think I know why, because I just looked up. There are no digital versions of this movie, only hard copies, and it's a Ron Howard movie that stars Mel Gibson called Ransom.
No, Ransom was in my honorable mentions as well. I didn't realize there were no...
You can't see it anywhere, and there's nowhere to buy it digitally. You can only buy a
It's the
Blu-ray
weirdest
or a
thing
DVD.
about the streaming era is how things aren't streaming. Like like you would think everything would be streaming somewhere just so, when somebody wanted to watch
There's a revenue
Ransom,
stream for it.
right? If somebody wanted to watch Ransom, they go, oh, well, I guess it's good I have Paramount Plus, or I don't have Paramount Plus, so I'm just throwing one out there. I don't even know who the production company for Ransom is, but it's like, and if it's not a main production company that has a streaming service, you would think that people would be like, I want to make a little bit extra money off this movie. I guess I'll sell it to such and such to let them stream it. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know why they make those decisions. But yeah,
Movies
Ransom's on my honorable mention as well. I did have a couple others.
Oh yeah, go.
I like Solo more than most. Solo, a Star Wars story, which Ron Howard got a directed by credit. It's a weird directed by credit because he really just kind of picked up the baton, quite a ways in. But I do enjoy that movie.
I don't know if it's one of those things like it's just a production nightmare for that movie, which it really was. So I don't know how much of like to blame I can put on Ron Howard for me really not liking that movie.
Yeah. And then I like his Grinch. I like the Grinch movie he did with Jim Carrey. I think that's really good. I really enjoy that one. So those are my honorable mentions. All right, let's finish off with some buried treasure. Andrew, I'll go first and let you finish us out.
Do it.
I watched a mockumentary on Paramount Plus called Players, and really, really enjoyed it. Players follows I
wanted to see this.
A mockumentary about a League of Legends team called Fugitive, and what happens when an up-and-coming esports star named Organism joins a team with an established star. And it's kind of, there's a lot of sports movie documentary kind of stuff into it. I don't know if you watch like the Michael Jordan documentary that ESPN did recently.
Wait, are you talking about the Last
Dance?
Last Dance?
Yeah. So there's there's that kind of feel to it. There's even times when they're like watching stuff on an iPad that reminded me of Last Dance. So there's a lot of that kind of mockumentary stuff. There's some over the top stuff. But what's amazing about this, by the way, it's done by the same people that did American Vandal. And American Vandal. I was
just about to ask if it's like American Vandal, because that is creme de la creme, amazing mockumentary.
This is as good, if not better, than American Vandal, in my opinion.
Oh, you've sold me. That's all you had to say.
And I think the reason is, in American Vandal, it was hilarious. It was it was a dead-on parody mockumentary, all that kind of stuff. It just worked. All the characters felt authentic, and they sold it, and it worked. But this does all of that, plus, in my mind, makes you actually feel something. So, like, and not that American Vandal didn't, have any kind of message or emotion to it, but it was primarily about the lulz, right? It was primarily about the hilarity. This has the hilarity, and you also end up like feeling like there's actual, real, human, authentic drama in it as well, which is really
pick sides and stuff.
Yeah, like it's a really interesting thing to pull off what they're doing here, and I think it works really well. So yeah, big recommend for Players. Finally got around to binging it. It's a pretty quick binge, and it's on Paramount Plus. And man, I hope they just keep making this show, because it's a lot of fun. And I will also mention, I don't think you have to know a lot about League of Legends or esports or any of that to really get into it. I actually happen to know a little bit about League of Legends because my boys played, and I've gotten into watching competitive League of Legends. And I will tell you, as somebody who has been into it a little bit, the absolute knowledge that they have of what goes on in League of Legends is so perfect. Like, this is, and again, you don't have to know it to enjoy it.
It's still understandable.
It's still understandable. Like, there are just human elements of any kind of competition or sports that you understand. You don't have to understand how the game works, how the gameplay works, any of that. You can understand what they're doing. But if you do know League of Legends, I think you will be impressed at the level of knowledge and care that's taken in actually making this feel like it's real, genuine esports stuff. So really well done. Just really well done. Players is on Paramount Plus, and that's my buried treasure. What do you got?
Well, Aaron, if I were to say, or to ask you, what country do you think has the best game shows? What would you possibly say?
Oh man, it depends on what you're in the mood for, but I mean, Japanese
Okay,
game shows
let me
are
say
amazing.
funniest game shows.
The funniest game shows
Yes.
depends on what you find funny, but no, I'm just
The
messing with you.
correct answer is Britain. The BBC has some of the best game shows, and I
Hmm.
found one last night that I went on a YouTube binge of 4 hours of just watching like the best of clips for the show called Would I Lie to You?
Okay.
Where it's Rob Brydon is the host of it.
Okay.
And basically, I think they even do a bit like this on Kimmel, where they read off a card, a story of something that happened to them in their lives, and then the other team kind of has to guess, is the story he just told true or false? And like they there's like a time limit where you can ask the person questions. Like I think one of them was, when I go to the zoo, elephants are always attracted to me and point their point their trunks at me. And so then you have like 5 minutes where you get to like interrogate the person and see if you think they're lying or telling the truth.
That
And
sounds fun.
it is hilarious.
Nice. Yeah, there's so much game show television that I know I would love and enjoy watching, and it's just an element that it's so hard for me to spend the small amounts of content time I have digging into something like that, even though I know I'd enjoy it, just because there's so many other things I feel like the pressure to have, seen or, that are prestige TV or whatever. And there's going to come a time, I'm telling you this now, there's going to come a time in the next 5 years or so where I will be done with prestige television. I will just be like, you guys can watch all the dramas. I'm going to watch reality television, game shows, stuff that makes me smile, stuff that makes me happy. And I get that there's going to be some great stuff I miss, but I'm going to sit on my couch and watch. I'm going to sit on my couch and laugh because that's what I want to do. But it hasn't happened yet. So I'm watching, stuff like, catching up on
Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or
The Old Man, what all this stuff that just kind of came and that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, this sounds really, really interesting to me.
Yeah, if you like shows like QI or 8 out of 10 Cats, or if shows like that, this would fit perfectly right into that little wheelhouse for you. So
nice,
yeah.
Nice. Would I Lie to You is on BBC
or YouTube. Just watch like 7 hours of clips,
or just do 7 hours clips on YouTube. Players is on Paramount Plus. Well, we did it, man. We did a podcast.
Woo! Yeah,
congratulations.
Climbed to the top of the tower and seized our destiny by plugging in our.
No, we did not. We swam 1.5 miles in a cave. That's what we did to accomplish this.
Would you rather try and okay, Aaron, would you rather try and save the kids or save the girl at the top of the tower?
The kids. Absolutely the kids, for so many multiple reasons.
Okay. Let's say it's the exact same person on either end and you have to try and save them. Which one are you going for?
Well, me personally,
cave or climb?
The person stuck on the tower, if it's up to me, is just stuck there. There's nothing I can do about that. I would be paralyzed to climb more than 10 feet in the air. So I'm sorry about that. Swimming underwater with diving apparatus, I can do. I would give it a shot. I would likely die because
Aaron, I'm not gonna. This isn't me saying that you're fat, but you are just actually a tall person. So I don't think you would be able to fit through the.
I would be dimensionally challenged to try to fit through some of that stuff. So. Yeah, absolutely. No, I would do the cave rescue. Either way, though, what I know I can accomplish multiple times a week is doing a podcast.
Yes.
And we did one today. So well done. Thanks so much for joining us today on SIF Pop. It is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. Find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Thanks, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil. I'm screaming from the top of a tower.
Oh, got it. I understand now. Much love and gratitude to our SIF Pop members for giving monthly to make SIF Pop a real thing. Again, support starts at $3 a month, and you get access to all the bonus episodes at a certain level, as well as some other fun perks. You can find out more of that information at patreon.com/SIFPop. Lots of ways to connect with the podcast. You can leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or email us at feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too, so make sure you let them know about it and that listening is much easier than taking loads of pictures and video and still keeping a phone charged for over 2 days. We will be back next week with a couple more movies. There's plenty that's come out, kind of some under the radar, some on screen. So we'll pick a couple and we'll talk about them next week. We'll see you then.
Bye.
There isn't like a big release, I don't think, next week that I'm thinking of.
Beast?
3,000 Beast came out this week. We can do Beast. 3,000 years. By the way, if you're watching live,
Elba. Both of them Idris Elba.
I know. If you're watching live and you have a preference, let us know in the chat because we will be picking them. But I think 3,000 Years of Longing we will probably do because it does come out next week, and then we'll pick something that we've missed over the last couple weeks. Maybe Beast, maybe something else that's streaming. There is stuff, so we'll be in touch about that. Polly Walnuts, great to see you hanging out in the chat. Thanks for chatting up on Twitch. Much appreciated there. I saw Jose the Third was watching on Twitch as well a little bit. Major Links, thanks for joining us on YouTube. Really appreciate you guys watching with us. But we're gonna wrap it up. Unless Andrew he's deep in thought about what we might review next week. So
no, I'm looking, and yeah, you're right. There is absolutely nothing coming out.
Yeah, there's a major release for sure.
The Invitation, I'm assuming it's a horror movie. So
that is a horror. The Invitation is a horror movie. Thanks, Major Links. Major Links says you guys are awesome. Really appreciate that.
Oh,
thank you,
Major Links. You are awesome.
All we need to know about you to know that you're awesome is that you said that we're awesome.
Yeah.
So now we know for a fact that you are also awesome.
That's the only criteria. It really is.
Yeah, The Invitation's a horror movie. Unless there's huge buzz about horror stuff, we don't usually do that. So we'll figure it out.
Well, we also have, I guess normally if we ever do talk about a show, we normally talk about like the first 3 episodes. So like, because I know House of Dragons is coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is coming out soon. Yeah. So yeah,
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk's already, first episode's already out. I actually have the first 4 episodes of She-Hulk. So I have opinions. Actually, I think I can say my opinions. I'll just say She-Hulk is, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
To me, this is more what I thought Marvel TV was going to be, which is just kind of like the Marvel characters in actual TV situation instead of just like playing everything into the movies. But yeah, I think it starts well. All right, let's wrap it up. Love you guys. We'll catch you, I think next Saturday morning should be the time. Sweet. We'll see you then.